Imagine trying to find a place in a city where streets have no names and no numbers, no street signs, no clear order, nothing you can just follow. You can't rely on a simple address. And yet, people still find exactly where they need to go. At first, it doesn't make sense. In most countries, you find a place by following a street name and a building number. That's how navigation works. You look at a map, follow the street, and the numbers guide you. But in Japan, addresses don't point to streets at all. They point to areas, then blocks, and then buildings inside those blocks, which means even if you're in the right place, you might still not be able to find it. Here's how it actually works. Instead of streets, cities are divided into named areas. Inside those areas, there are smaller sections called blocks, and every building belongs to one of those blocks. So an address doesn't tell you which street to follow. It tells you which area to go to, then which block to find, and only then which building you're looking for. At first, this might sound similar to how addresses work anywhere else. But there's one key difference. The numbers don't follow a straight line along a street. They don't increase as you move forward. Instead, they are assigned based on when buildings were constructed, which means two buildings right next to each other can have completely unrelated numbers. And there's no simple pattern you can follow. No left to right, no up or down. So even if you're standing in the right area and even inside the correct block, you still might not be able to find the place you're looking for. Because the logic isn't visual. It's based on how the city grew over time. And unless you understand that logic, it can feel almost impossible to navigate. And this is where it really starts to break your expectations. Two buildings, right next to each other, can have completely different numbers. Not because they're far apart, but because they were built at different times. So the numbers don't follow the street. They follow the history of the place. Which means standing right in front of the location you're looking for doesn't guarantee anything. You might still be looking at the wrong building, even if the address is technically correct. And here's the part most people don't expect. There's no simple sequence to follow, no clear direction, no way to just walk forward until the numbers line up, because there is no line to follow. Instead, finding a place becomes a process. You get to the right area, then the right block, and only then you start checking individual buildings. Sometimes you walk past it, sometimes you turn back, and sometimes it's right there, but you don't recognize it. Until you understand that, the system feels almost random. So why does the system work like this? It comes down to how cities in Japan developed over time. Many neighborhoods weren't planned around streets. They grew gradually, with buildings added piece by piece, often without a fixed layout. Instead of organizing space by roads, the system focused on land and ownership. Areas were divided into sections. Those sections were divided into blocks, and buildings were recorded within those blocks as they appeared, which means the numbers reflect the order of construction, not physical position. So the address describes a place inside a structure, not a path you can follow on a street. And here's the key idea. It wasn't designed for visual navigation. It was designed for administration, for records, for organizing land and property. And once you understand that, the logic starts to make more sense, even if it still feels unusual at first. And despite all of this, the system still works. People don't rely on street names. They rely on context, landmarks, familiar routes, local knowledge. And over time, what feels confusing at first starts to become predictable. You begin to recognize patterns. You notice how areas connect. You remember where certain buildings are in relation to everything else around them. Because instead of following a street, you're learning how the place is structured. And once you see it that way, it stops feeling random. It just feels different, maybe even more natural in its own way. So the next time you look at a map of Japan, remember, you're not looking at streets. You're looking at a completely different way of organizing a city. And once you understand that, it all starts to make sense. Would this system work where you live?